our lives would have been deemed unbelievable. Millions of all-knowing oracles, capable of interfacing with the corpus of all human ingenuity, are produced every year. Writers of the past often ponder the future, imagining the technologies that might one day exist, yet few envision the sheer ubiquity of such wonders among the general populace. Having internalized the nature of those pocket-sized or wearable miracles we all have, we must ask, does unboxing them have to be so boring? Yeah, so this might not be the most pressing issue in the world, maybe, possibly, theoretically, but it's an interesting problem to work on as a designer. It's often overlooked, and it's different from what I'm used to. Why should an unboxing be interesting? Well, why not? Maybe even considering all the constraints, there are opportunities. The unboxing experience has many constraints, space being the most glaring. It's easy to make something feel premium and cool if you can make a gigantic box full of wasted space, a trick often used with things like press kits. A trick that doesn't scale when you have to ship tens of millions of boxes to your customers all around the world. So is this stuff doomed to be uninspired? The aim of this project is to prove that it isn't. Since I want this concept to be realistic, I need to choose a pre-existing brand with pre-existing values. If you have been following me for a while, you know that whenever I want to make a weird and unusual concept, my favorite subject is nothing. They are basically the only ones who I could see trying something as weird as I'd like this project to be. This is the moment where I reveal that I didn't do this challenge alone. I worked with a friend of mine, Francesco, who also happens to have a way bigger YouTube channel than I have, although it's in Italian. We began by analyzing the branding, to see if there was some missed opportunity we could take advantage of. One of the key values Nothing wants to express is transparency, literally and metaphorically. Whenever possible for hardware, they use clear materials, since it's the most direct way of showing what a product really is like. For immaterial things like typography or sound, they like to reference the history of industrial design, or some aspect of the production process. But the coolest part is probably the marketing. Their YouTube channel is an actual YouTube channel. You have all the basic stuff, trailers, ads, and so on, but a good chunk of what they post is vlogs. They often have people from all parts of the company explain the choices they made, the compromises they made, and they don't shy away from elaborating on the weird parts as well. For example, do you know what was the inspiration behind these, the Ear A? The goal was to make a smaller case, so they went looking for examples of products that do this very well. If you want to know what that inspiration was, you'll need to wait a few minutes. Take a guess. What I can tell you is that it has absolutely nothing to do with audio or products in that field whatsoever. For now, let's return to the challenge. We were looking for an opportunity to improve the unboxing experience, right? Well, I think we just found it, because despite how much they like to describe their creative process, it's all done elsewhere. You can find their breakdowns on YouTube or on their community forum, but not when you actually buy the product. It's a very important aspect of their branding, and yet you have to go out of your way to experience it. The product you just bought has a story, but there's nothing prompting new users to discover it. So what if the story became part of the unboxing experience? Conceptually, it's not a new idea. It's often done for premium products in many fields that aren't consumer technology. Usually they include booklets or similar stuff. That could work maybe, but it's boring. We think this idea could have a more unique form, one that is perfectly consistent with everything they do and that would greatly enhance other aspects of the brand. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. If you saw my proposal for the community edition Phone 2A, you'll possibly remember how I found a recurring theme in their marketing. They are obsessed with Pokemon. It might seem like a random thing even if they put it literally everywhere, but it makes perfect sense. The types of media that will matter most in the future have changed. Their target audience and their own teams are comprised in no small part by millennials or even younger people who grew up with them. And in addition to being the single biggest media franchise in the world, Pokemon is linked to all of them simultaneously. It's one of the facets of this multimedia franchise that we're interested in. One whose already huge popularity is on the rise. One with a pre-existing association to being premium. One they've specifically referenced multiple times. What if the medium to tell those stories became this? This concept has been in the works for a few months by now. We think it's the perfect idea at the perfect time. Trading cards as a cultural phenomenon have already seen a huge return to popularity over the last decade, and after the resounding success of TGC Pocket, Their moment in the spotlight doesn't seem to be over. What we are envisioning here, however, is real physical cards. There is an aspect of tactility that has never been replicated through purely digital means. It simply feels more premium. Additionally, physical cards don't need apps or servers or any digital infrastructure to continue to exist. You get them and they are yours forever. They wouldn't detract from the actual products, of course. They wouldn't even take many resources in general, not in terms of time, attention, space or money. They would only complement the product and the unboxing experience. The design we made works like this. Every card uses both sides to tell the story. On the front, you have a full art illustration, depicting an aspect of the product worth narrating, like its marketing campaign, or something that inspired that product's creative process, or maybe a weird prototype design. Whatever it is, it can be pretty cryptic, as long as it catches the attention. On the back of the card, instead, you'd find the textual explanation of what you just saw. We crafted this design in a way that would make the cards look like a part of a cohesive collection, while still allowing them to not feel repetitive, ensuring that both the art and the story get all the space they need. Above the story section there is the metadata essentially, product name, how many iterations it took, color, release date, and a standardized picture, as well as the code name that expands on that of the original device. Since we wanted them to be easy to collect, their size is identical to that of Pokemon cards, so that they would be compatible with the same kinds of binders and sleeves. Of course, there is no mechanic to turn this into a game, because it wouldn't make sense, and there is no rarity as well. Not according to the common definition at least. We define different classes of card, identified by the color of the dot in the bottom left corner. All phones get a red dot, audio devices get a blue dot, and then we have other classes too, including one that I will come back to shortly. The idea is that every class of card has a different treatment. We keep it standardized to make it more feasible, maybe with a few exceptions when it makes just too much sense. Regardless, everything I mentioned has been done before. Every device would potentially have multiple cards made for it, one for each variant. So the phone 2A comes in 3 colors, it gets 3 cards, and every variant is guaranteed to only come with its own assigned card. We consider the possibility of creating multiple rarities for each card, but the risk of having people buying and returning the same device over and over to find something rare was too high. If you think that a whole card for every color might be too much, that the stories you can tell would be few and boring, well, think again. Remember what I said about the Ear A design? If you guessed that they were inspired by pharmaceutical products like contact lens cases and pill blisters, congratulations! No, yeah, that was the inspiration, for real. They liked how that type of packaging basically has bubbles surrounding the products while remaining as flat as possible everywhere else. Something tells me that not many of you actually got it right. Stories like this might seem pretty weird, and they are, but that's because the design is pretty weird. You can find similar anecdotes in basically all creative fields. It's just how creativity works. There is no shortage of interesting or unexpected stories to tell. By the way, I'm sure some of you were wondering about that thing in the top left corner, right? Well, since nothing's aesthetic revolves around transparency, that element had to be there somehow. Our solution? We pierced the card. Yeah, I'm not sure how easy that would be to achieve actually, but it was too cool to omit. Alongside the cards, we designed their minimalistic packaging too. It's made out of semi-transparent paper, so that you can sorta tell what it contains, but you still gotta open it to see it. This whole setup is designed to maximize the perceived value and bring more attention to the story. You unbox the product, but you find this mysterious thing. You want to discover what it is, so you open it, read it, and discover something new. Then you're left with a cool looking card that you don't want to throw away. And every nothing product you buy will give you something else to add to your collection, even if you're not doing it on purpose essentially. Anyway, at the beginning of the video, if you remember, I said that we wanted this idea to, if possible, also enhance other aspects of the brand, right? It would neither be an insult or an exaggeration to say that the way Nothing interacts with their community has to be their biggest innovation yet. They are probably the only brand I've ever seen encouraging their fanbase to make concepts and discuss new ideas, and their designers publicly acknowledge and critique them on the same YouTube channel where they announce everything they did. The most ambitious project they did has to be their community edition phone. A very cool but ridiculously complex feat. Surely not something that they could do more than once per year, and even that would be a lot. Our concept would be another, much more feasible way to constantly keep the community engaged. By their very nature, the illustrations on those cards don't have to be too generic or too descriptive. Once they've settled on a subject, there is a billion ways it can be represented. They could ask the community to design them, with a contest or something, and the winner would see the card with their name shipped alongside the real product. This concept, despite its simplicity, has so many emergent properties. Collections tend to have this effect. Without the context, the cards are just cool pieces of cardboard, but the idea of something you can collect changes everything. It gives it additional value. I've seen people making collections of Apple stickers. Once the idea is established enough, it can be repurposed in a ton of different ways. In addition to everything I said, you could give cards at launch events, store openings, to influencers as invites to keynotes. All sorts of initiatives, really. It's the principle behind promo cards, which in our concept we envisioned as the most prestigious class, signaled by the black dot. Ideally, they should feature the wildest and most complex visual treatments, with texture, metalness, multiple levels of roughness, and so on. In conclusion, what was the point of this? Well, working on this project was fun, but that's not why we made it. The culture has changed. How people interact with technology has changed. How this stuff is communicated should reflect that. As I alluded to before, computers of all kinds stopped being utilitarian machines a long time ago. People go with an ecosystem instead of another for reasons beyond what can be measured and compared objectively nowadays. This idea was tailored to Nothing's brand, and it wouldn't work for any other. But in all those cases, you've got a billion other interesting things that could be tried. A billion other ways to acknowledge the work that goes into the industry. A billion other ways to give it the polish it deserves. Is it pretentious? Possibly, yes. But I vastly prefer pretentiousness to apathy. A boring, less intentional brand can only succeed when you've got some other huge advantage over the competition. And even then, it's not better for anyone. It's just less work. If you're interested, in this other video I go into more detail about this idea among the other things. Check that if you want. Ciao!